The irony of like, how do you deal with that bandwidth? And for her, it's like a song can retell the story of your life to yourself, reframe your pain into useful lessons like songs do all over the world for everybody, and help you to restructure your present and your future. And so for her, she tells me like when it's too much, when I can't take it anymore, I just sit myself down in front of Olivia again in my head, and I'm right there with her, and it just all of a sudden I can do it again. So it's just that in-depth psychology. How do we penetrate to that place? Maybe it's ayahuasca, and then get that song, the Icaro, from all the plants to just boom, put something inside her that she can go back to now over and over again when things get tough to stay on the right course. So, cough is less, things are beginning to settle. Next slide. Just a couple of slides, I'm going to stop in just like 1 minute, 2 minutes. So this placebo effect, for whatever it's worth, one time I was Julian, who is like an incredible visionary dude, that he sees so much, in the ceremony, and we regularly record, like, Julian, what happened? Did you see that? Just checking in with Julian, and he's Olivia's, he's the carrier of the gene, he's the generation that came from her magic. And so one day he was singing to me in the ceremony, and he sings in Shipibo, but once in a while they throw a little Spanish, because they don't have a word in Shipibo for book, so he's like, lectura, lectura, and I'm like, what is he singing in a book? He's singing to the book, and I think, oh, these superstitious guys, he's thinking, doesn't want me to read some book, or who knows what it is. And so then I tell him the next day, I'm like, well, what's that? You're singing to me about that book. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you're reading that book right now, huh? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, that's fascinating. That was really fascinating, that stuff. And he's like, it's like what is that? He's like, it's magia blanca. It's like, that's a white magic, what is that? And it was this book about the placebo effect that Rael lent me, So it was just very interesting. Moving on. So, just a comment about placebo, maybe it's all just placebo. Oh, great, I hope it's placebo. Who cares, she's better, but let's examine the placebo. So, they say positive placebo response. This is Howard Brody, that book has all range of placebo opinions, including some pretty draconian stuff. But he says, he's a clinician, a positive placebo, or among other things, positive placebo response is most likely to occur when the meaning attached to that illness experienced by the patient is altered in a positive direction. So that is, now we don't have to try to figure out and do all the tricks of giving them the fake pills, but can we just make this happen? Can we focus on shifting the meaning attached to that illness experience in a positive direction? And then he says, meaning in turn, I'll go back one time. Oh, sorry. Meaning in turn consists of at least 3 general components: providing an understanding and satisfying the explanation of the illness to the person. So in her case, it's spiritual wound, is one of the ways to approach it. Demonstrating care and concern, easy enough. And holding out an enhanced promise of mastery or control over those symptoms. And just doing that, holding that space for somebody, that's the white magic of placebo. You can get healing work with meaningful results and help a lot of people doing that, whether or not it's the spirits or the plants. Yes, we do believe that, and many people come through believe that. And at the very least, they get this, and we get great results with many, many people. One more slide. Just to touch on, I was at the Paul Mills lab for a period of time, and it was an incredible experience. But psychoneuroimmunology, if I had more time, I would try to talk more about psychoneuroimmunology. The shaman, Guillermo, we all presented in a conference in Bogota, Colombia, and he was fascinated by P&I. He's like, well, this is what we do, psychoneuroimmunology, this is it. I'm talking about cortisol response and placebo response and energy healing study. And so this is a little simple thing is this personal mastery test. This is, ask people these questions. There's really no way I can solve some of the problems I have. Sometimes I feel that I'm being pushed around in life. I have little control. I can do just about anything I really set my mind to. How do people score on these questions? And they're linking it in a study to their basically their stress tolerance, right, in an Alzheimer's caregiving situation, and also to some measures of immune function. So if you can help improve somebody's personal mastery, well then you have an opportunity to improve their health. It seems. So if that's an extrapolation, but that's the idea. And so, anecdotally, I did a little P&I, this personal mastery test on all the Spaceship Earth people. And somebody like Jared, you think he's just on top of the world, but he scored higher after the intervention. It's anecdotal, we don't have statistics, but continue. Everybody did. Everyone scored higher. So just final overview. There's a lot of different things in traditional Amazonian medicine. You don't hear about. There's herbalists that are not shamans that are doing plant medicine work all over the Amazon. There's the shamans that are, some of them are ayahuasqueros, some of them are working with perfumes and prayers and everything else. There's body workers, the hueseros and sobadores, your Mexican patients here and other Latinos. Very common practice throughout the San Diego region. Parteras, midwives. So these are some of the traditional practices in this old way. Continuing. And then, when there's a long walk to integration, because there's just been a big divide. This was a slide, this is my last slide, I'll stop here. This was at the Scripps Center for Integrative Medicine Conference, where they present on the herbs of the world. They did this whole Chinese medicine, and it was this long slides, and then they did the Ayurvedic, and it was this big long thing, and then they said, oh yeah, the Amazon, what's going on in the Amazon? And they showed this slide, literally this slide, which is from India, I'm pretty sure. It's not and it's like they have so much and they don't know what to do with it, And it's just part of this long story of this slow integration. Actually, this is going to be fast to just pull through. Keep pulling it through, Jared. Just what is the situation in Latin America? Why is the traditional Amazonian plant medicine so far removed from the world of Western and allopathic medicine and academic world? And it's like there was a huge civilization, turns out, in the Amazon according to 1491 and all these other new books about archaeology and very sophisticated culture and Lost City of Z exploring lost Amazonian cities that were wiped out by disease and Spanish conquest continue. And so we can imagine the situation here in the United States that the Native American medicine is just, largely absent from any kind of dialogue on a large scene, even though we're here in Native America. And so you can imagine Latin America where there's a lot more indigenous blood that has survived, but the colonialization continue. Like here's this Guns, Germs, and Steel is a great book on, the situation, how did it result that the Spanish could defeat the Incas with only 500 soldiers, and the Incas, there were thousands of them. And what was the reason for this technology being so different? And what's come out of that, and me as a Colombian American, and I see my family and their whole world, is that there is this colonialized mestizo culture where it's changing now. There is a shift now, but it's taken a long time. Where the indigenous side of things was, we're supposed to be ashamed of that. Don't bring that up. The last thing, my family wants is them to struggle to bring me to America, send me to medical school at UCSD, and then to go back to the Amazon with the Indians. Please help Joe. So, continue. So, there's this sense that, it's ignorant. Yeah, there is a lot of ignorance, They don't have education, they don't have the internet, and they don't know the things that we know. And Ricardo's going to say some off-color things that you're like, whoa, and dude, I thought he was the master. And he's a master healer, he doesn't know everything that we know. We have a lot of exposure. It's backwards, we got to move on. We're Latinos, we're not Indians. It's too superstitious. There's a lot of superstition that goes, you can go way too far to the other side of the mystical, magical world and be paranoid about every little thing. And this wasp just flew past my ear, and what does it mean? It's not evidence-based. Continue. And so, although there is a large cultural divide between these worlds, this ayahuasca tourism is this very interesting thing. The Western culture, that was the initial destruction of the indigenous world, is now the one that's bringing it back into the spotlight. Because my cousins, the Latinos that are living it up in Bogota, they don't want to. They're like, what are the Indians like? What is that like? And then I say, it's going to be just like Coca-Cola. Like once you see the Americans, once you see the gringos doing it, you guys are going to want to know what it is, and you're going to start doing it. And that is what is happening right now. And so it's this irony that it's just coming back around. Next slide. That this is just a quote from Alan Shoemaker, who runs the indigenous, the shaman conference in Iquitos, and he just says, his police friends told him that on any given Friday night, 10% of the whole Iquitos is in ayahuasca ceremony. That's more than 40,000 people. The compounds that cater to gringos coming here are but a drop in the bucket to what the Peruvians are doing. When I got here in Iquitos 20 years ago, none of the children or grandchildren wanted to learn the ways of their shaman father and or grandfather because they had no income, could never assist their children with clothes, school books, etc., because they were so poor. After the gringos began arriving, the father or the grandfather in many cases got hired to run ceremonies and were paid very well. Now they buy the school books, the tennis shoes, etc. And most importantly, the children and grandchildren now want to learn the traditional plant medicine because they can not only see a future in it, but because they see how very respected they are in the eyes of the gringos. So it's just, because people were, ayahuasca tourism is going to destroy the Indians, it's going to destroy the forest. But I don't think so. And my partner, I work for Shi people. He's the main partner in our center. I'm not, a gringo trying to, the Indians are directing what we're doing there.